The last thing Diana remembered before falling off the cliff was a familiar perfume, lavender and lies. The hands against her back were small, delicate even, the same hands that had braided Diana's hair every morning for 16 years, that had traced promises in the dirt behind their house, sisters forever, no matter what. Diana didn't scream. That's the part that would haunt her most later. When Celine pushed her off Widow's Drop, she was so stunned by the betrayal that she went silent. Just the wind screaming for her as she fell, the pine trees reaching up like clawed fingers, and far, far below were the rocks that had killed 3 people this year alone. They called it Widow's Drop because pack law required unmated females to jump if they refused their chosen match. No one had refused in 2 generations. No one was that stupid. But Diana hadn't refused anything. She'd been on her way to the mating ceremony. White dress, flowers in her hair, stomach twisting with nerves, because tonight she'd find out which of the pack's males wanted her enough to claim her in front of everyone. Her father had been dropping hints about Gavin's son for weeks. Good bloodline, strong hunter, decent enough face if you squinted. She'd resigned herself to it. That's what you did when you were the second daughter of a middling family with nothing special about you except the fact that you could gut a deer faster than most males, and you'd read every book in the pack's pathetic library twice. Celine was the beauty. Celine was the sister everyone expected to make a brilliant match. So why had she pushed her? The impact should have killed Diana instantly. Instead, she hit water, which made no sense because Widow's Drop overlooked rocks. Just rocks. Everyone knew there was no water. But she was sinking in freezing blackness now, lungs burning, dress tangling around her legs. She broke the surface gasping. It was dark, and she wasn't alone. The wolf watching her from the shore was the size of a horse. Black fur, silver eyes that caught what little light existed here, and an intelligence in its gaze that made her blood freeze colder than the water already was. It didn't growl, didn't bare teeth. It just stared at her with growing recognition. "Please," Diana heard herself say, which was silly. Begging a wolf, great plan, but her arms were going numb, and she was wearing what felt like 70 pounds of ceremonial silk. "Please, I don't want to drown." The wolf tilted its massive head. Then it did something impossible. It shifted. The man who stood where the wolf had been was nothing like the males from Diana's pack. Taller, broader through the shoulders, with dark hair that fell past his collar and those same silver eyes that seemed to look straight through her skin to count her bones. He didn't say anything, just waded into the water with his clothes still on, expensive clothes, she noticed dimly, and pulled her out like she weighed nothing. Diana's teeth were chattering too hard to speak. Her fingers had gone white, nerveless. The dress clung to her like a second skin made of ice. The man set her down on the rocky shore and immediately started working at the buttons running down her spine. Diana's survival instincts finally kicked in. She lurched away from him, nearly fell, catching herself on a boulder. "Easy." His voice was deep, rougher than she'd expected. Northern accent. "If you keep fighting me, you'll die of cold before I get those wet clothes off you." "Who?" Her jaw was shaking so hard she could barely form words. "Who are you?" "Someone who just saved your life." He moved toward her again, slower this time, hands up like he was approaching a spooked animal. "I'm not going to hurt you, but that dress needs to come off, and you need to get warm, or hypothermia is going to finish what that fall started." Diana wanted to argue, wanted to know why there was water where there should have only been rocks, why this stranger had been here at exactly the right moment, why Celine had pushed her. But her body was shutting down. She could feel it happening, the deadly cold seeping into her core, her thoughts going sluggish and strange. She let him turn her around, let him work the tiny buttons free with surprisingly gentle fingers. When the dress finally fell away, he wrapped her in his coat, still warm from his body, and lifted her again. "There's a cabin," he said. 10 minutes. Can you stay awake for 10 minutes? Diana meant to say yes. Instead, she buried her face against his chest and let the darkness take her. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe. It will make my day. She woke to firelight and the smell of cedar burning. For a disorienting moment, Diana thought she was home, that the ceremony was still ahead of her, that she just had the world's worst nightmare. Then she tried to sit up, and her entire body screamed in protest. "Don't!" The stranger was there immediately, pressing her back down onto what felt like a surprisingly comfortable cot. "You took a hell of a fall. Nothing broken, somehow, but you're going to be sore for days." Diana's mind was clearer now, sharp with panic. She was in a small cabin, rustic but well-maintained. The stranger had changed clothes, dark pants, a loose shirt that showed the corded muscle of his forearms. And she was wearing... She looked down, an oversized shirt that definitely belonged to him. Nothing else. Her face went hot. Before she could say anything, he read her mind. "Your clothes were soaked and freezing. You would have died." He held her gaze steadily. "I didn't look more than necessary, and I didn't touch you inappropriately. You have my word." Something in his tone made her believe him, which was insane, because she didn't know this man, didn't know why he'd been at Widow's Drop, didn't know... "There's no water at Widow's Drop," Diana said abruptly. "Everyone knows that. It's all rocks. I should be dead." The stranger's expression shifted, became more guarded. "There is water. Most people just can't see it anymore." "What do you mean?" He moved to a small table, poured something from a kettle into a cup. "Drink this. It'll help with the cold." Diana accepted the cup because her hands needed something to do, something to hold on to. The liquid was bitter, herbal. She drank it anyway. "The pool beneath Widow's Drop is old," the stranger said finally, settling into a chair across from her. "Older than your pack, older than mine. It used to be a sacred site, back when the pack still believed in the old ways. True mates would throw themselves off the cliff together, a leap of faith. If their bond was real, the pool would appear and catch them. If it wasn't..." He shrugged. "The rocks." Diana stared at him. "That's a myth. Most myths have bones of truth buried in them." His silver eyes hadn't left her face. "The pool hasn't appeared in over 100 years. Most wolves have forgotten it exists at all. But it appeared for me. Why?" The stranger was quiet for a long moment. "That's a complicated question. Who pushed you off that cliff?" The change in subject was so abrupt, it took Diana a second to catch up, and then the memory crashed back. Celine's hands, the lavender perfume, the absolute shock of betrayal, and Diana's throat closed up. "My sister." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Celine. We were walking to the ceremony together. We were talking about how nervous I was, and she was telling me it would be fine, that whoever claimed me would be lucky to have me, and then we got to the cliff path, and she pushed me." Saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Diana felt something crack open in her chest, something that hurt worse than the cold or the fall or the bruises covering her body. "Why would she do that?" Diana's voice broke. "We're sisters. She's the only family I have left besides my father, and he's barely..." She stopped, swallowed hard. The stranger leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That's what we need to figure out, because attempted murder isn't random. People don't kill without reason, especially not family." He paused. "My name is Brooks. I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Pack." Diana's head snapped up. "The Northern Pack?" They were the most powerful pack in the region, wealthy and feared, and so far above her own pack's status, it was laughable. "What are you doing here?" "I was passing through on business," Brooks said carefully, and then I felt something, like a rope tied around my chest, pulling me toward the cliff. My wolf took over before I could think about it. By the time I got there, you were already falling. "You change the wind." Diana realized it suddenly, remembered the impossible sensation of her trajectory shifting mid-fall. "You used your power to push me toward the water." "Yes. Something told me you were important. I think the pool appeared for both of us." Diana's heart was suddenly hammering. "What does that mean?" "Based on legend, the pool only appears when true mates take the leap together. But you fell alone, and it still appeared. And I sensed you falling from miles away, felt it like my own bones breaking." Brooks's voice had gone rough. "I've never felt anything like that before. Not with anyone." The implication hung in the air between them, heavy and impossible. "No," Diana said. No. True mates are rare, and that's not..." She couldn't finish any of the sentences she was starting. Her thoughts were racing too fast, tangling together. True mates were stories parents told their daughters to make arranged matings seem romantic. Diana had never been in love, never even come close. She'd watched couples pair off, seen the way they looked at each other, and felt nothing but mild curiosity. Her sister had called her frigid once, during a fight. Maybe Celine had been right. "I'm not asking you to accept it right now," Brooks said quietly. "I'm just telling you what I know, what I felt." He stood, moved to the window. "Taking you back to your pack right now would be a mistake. Your sister tried to kill you today. Until we know why, you're not safe there." "I can't just disappear," Diana protested. "My father, the pack, they'll think I'm dead. They'll think I jumped because I refused the ceremony. They'll mourn," Brooks interrupted, turning back to face her. "And while they're mourning, we're going to figure out why Celine wanted you dead. Because I promise you, Diana, there's a reason. And we're going to find it." Diana spent the next 3 days in Brooks's cabin, recovering and trying not to think about the word mate every time she looked at him. It was harder than it should have been. Because there was something about Brooks that made her skin feel too tight, made her hyper-aware of every time he moved, every time his voice rumbled through the small space. She'd catch herself watching his hands as he prepared food, tracking the efficient way he moved through the cabin like he owned every inch of space he occupied. On the 4th day, Brooks returned from a scouting trip with supplies and news. "I sent some of my people to ask questions in your pack," he said, unpacking a bag onto the table. "They posed as travelers, listened to gossip at the tavern, talked to some of the older wolves." Diana's stomach clenched. "And?" "Your sister has been involved with someone, a mated male, high-ranking in your pack. They've been very careful about it, but people have noticed things. Secret meetings, Celine leaving the house at odd hours." Brooks pulled out a stack of letters, tied with a ribbon. "And then, one of my people found these in Celine's room." Diana took the letters with shaking hands. The handwriting was masculine, angular. She recognized it immediately. Connor, their pack's beta and her father's closest friend. A male who'd been mated for 15 years, who had 3 children. She opened the first letter, started reading, and felt her stomach turn. "Celine, I can't stop thinking about you. This is madness, I know. I have obligations, a mate, children who need me. But when I see you, everything else fades away. You're all I can think about. I know you want more than secret meetings and stolen moments. You deserve more. But we have to be careful. I saw Diana today. She's so different from you. Quiet where you're vibrant, plain where you're beautiful. But she looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I haven't seen in years. Interest, maybe. Something genuine. I find myself wondering what she would be like, if things were different, if I could start over with someone like her instead. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have written that. You're the one I want. You're the one I choose, even if I can't choose you openly. Burn this letter. Diana read 3 more letters, each one worse than the last. Connor obsessing over her while carrying on an affair with Celine. Celine growing increasingly desperate, jealous, angry. The final letter was dated 2 days before the ceremony. He won't stop talking about her. Every time I see him, it's Diana this, Diana that. He's going to bid for her at the ceremony. I know it. He's going to throw everything away. His mate, his family, our future, for her. She doesn't even want him. I see the way she looks at him. Polite, distant. She doesn't feel anything. But he doesn't see that. He only sees what he wants to see. I won't let him destroy everything for someone who doesn't even care. I won't let her take him from me. Diana's hands were shaking so badly the paper rustled. She was going to kill me because Connor wanted me instead of her? It looks that way, Brooks said quietly. I didn't... Diana's voice cracked. I never encouraged him. I barely spoke to him. He's mated. He has a family. I would never... I know. Brooks was there suddenly, kneeling in front of her, his hands covering hers. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. She tried to kill me over a man I didn't even want. Diana couldn't stop the tears now, hot and angry and devastating. She's my sister. We were supposed to... She couldn't finish. Brooks pulled her forward, and Diana found herself crying into his chest while he held her, one hand stroking her hair, his voice a low rumble against her ear. I know it hurts, he murmured. I'm sorry. They stayed like that for a long time, and when Diana finally pulled back, wiping at her face, she found Brooks watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. What? She asked. You're stronger than you think, he said. You have a fighting spirit. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about not feeling pain. It's about feeling it and surviving anyway. Brooks stood, offering her his hand. And now we decide what to do next. Diana took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. I want to confront her. I want the pack to know what she did. That's risky. You'd be accusing a pack member of attempted murder. Without proof beyond these letters, then we get proof, Diana interrupted. We make her confess. Brooks studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was all teeth. All right, let's go make your sister face what she's done. Brooks arranged a formal territorial meeting, politically risky but technically legal. As an Alpha King, he had the right to request an audience with another pack's leadership, especially if he had information about a crime. What made Diana's stomach twist was that he was doing all of this for her. An Alpha King didn't involve himself in the petty drama of smaller packs. He certainly didn't risk a territorial incident over a nobody like her. But when she'd said as much, Brooks had just looked at her with those silver eyes and said, You're not nobody, not to me. Which was a whole other problem Diana couldn't afford to think about right now. They traveled to her pack's territory at dawn, Brooks's people flanking them. a show of force that made it clear this wasn't a friendly visit. Diana wore one of Brooks's shirts belted like a dress, her ceremonial gown still ruined and drying back at the cabin. She looked like exactly what she was, someone who'd survived the impossible. Her father was waiting at the pack house, surrounded by the council. His face went white when he saw her. "Diana." Her name came out strangled. "You're alive. We thought, when you didn't come to the ceremony, when we found your flowers at the cliff." "I know what you thought," Diana said. Her voice was steadier than she'd expected. "Where's Celine?" "Your sister has been devastated." Her father's voice was sharp now, defensive. "She's barely left her room since you disappeared. She thinks you jumped because you were afraid of the ceremony, and she's been blaming herself for not stopping you." "Interesting," Brooks said dryly. Diana's father finally seemed to register who was standing beside his daughter. His face went even paler. "Alpha King Brooks, we didn't expect. I'm here because your daughter was murdered 4 days ago," Brooks said flatly. "Or someone tried very hard to murder her. I'd like to discuss that with your council, and with Celine." The council erupted in protests and questions, but Brooks's people closed ranks, their presence a silent threat. Diana's father looked between her and Brooks, his expression caught between relief and fear. "Get Celine," he finally said to one of the council members. "Now." Celine arrived looking appropriately devastated, red eyes, pale face, hair uncombed. She saw Diana and let out a sob, rushing forward like she was going to embrace her. Diana stepped back. "Don't touch me." Celine froze. "Diana, thank the moon. I thought you were dead. I thought—" "You pushed me," Diana said. Each word felt like spitting out glass. "Off Widow's Drop. You stood behind me and you pushed me, and you meant for me to die on those rocks." The room went utterly silent. Celine's expression shifted. Just for a second, Diana saw something cold and calculating in her sister's eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by horror. "That's insane. Diana, I would never— You're my sister. I love you." "Connor was going to bid for me at the ceremony," Diana continued, her voice cutting through Celine's protests. "He'd been obsessing over me for months, and you couldn't stand it, could you? You've been sleeping with a mated male, keeping it secret, and you thought you could make him leave his family for you. But I was a complication in your plans." Celine's face was turning red. "You sound delusional. The fall must have damaged your head." "We have the letters." Brooks pulled the stack from his coat, tossed them onto the council table. Love letters from Connor to Celine, including several where he talks about being attracted to Diana, and one from Celine, dated 2 days before the ceremony, where she explicitly says she won't let Diana take him from her. One of the council members picked up the letters, started reading. His face went rigid. "This is—" He looked at Celine. "This is your handwriting." "Those are forgeries," Celine said desperately. "Someone's trying to frame me." "Where's Connor?" Diana asked quietly. The question landed like a stone in water. Celine's mouth opened, then closed. The council members looked at each other. "Connor hasn't been seen since the morning of the ceremony," one of them said slowly. "His mate reported him missing. We've been searching, but—" "He probably ran," Brooks finished. "When Diana disappeared, when he realized what Celine had done, he ran. Because if anyone investigated too closely, they'd find out about the affair." Diana's father was staring at Celine like he'd never seen her before. "Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't try to kill your sister." Celine looked at Diana, and for the first time, there was no pretense in her expression, just pure, venomous hatred. She had everything, Celine said softly. Everyone always loved Diana more. Oh, she's so clever, she's so capable, she's so independent. Nobody cared that I was beautiful or charming or perfect. They only cared about her. That's not true, Diana whispered. It is. Celine's voice rose. And then Connor, the one man who actually saw me, who wanted me, he started looking at you instead, planning to claim you. I'd given him everything, and he was going to throw me away for you. She laughed, bitter and sharp. So, yes, I pushed you, and I'd do it again. The silence that followed was deafening. Diana's father made a sound like he'd been punched. The council members were frozen, shocked. Brooks moved forward, placing himself between Diana and Celine. By the old laws and pack code, attempted murder of a pack member carries 2 sentences: exile or death. The victim chooses. Diana looked at her sister. How did we get here? She thought, feeling something crack open in her chest. How did sisters forever turn into this, broken beyond repair, standing on opposite sides of a confession that could never be taken back? Exile, she said finally. You wanted me gone so badly, Celine. Now you're the one who leaves. You get to live, but not here. Never here again. Celine's face crumpled. Diana, please. Guards, Diana's father said, his voice hollow. Escort Celine to the border. Strip her of pack bonds. She's no longer one of us. As they dragged Celine away, still screaming, still begging, Diana felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief, and certainly not satisfaction. Just closure. Brooks touched her shoulder gently. It's done. Diana turned to her father. I'm leaving too. Her father's eyes were wet. Where will you go? Diana looked at Brooks and found him already watching her. There was a question in his gaze, careful and hopeful. North, she said. With him. They released Diana from her pack bonds at sunset. It was a simple ceremony, formal and final. Her father cried. Some of the pack members who'd known her since childhood looked devastated, but Diana felt lighter than she had in years. Brooks was waiting outside the pack house, his people already mounted and ready to travel. He'd given her space for the ceremony, hadn't pushed or presumed. Now he offered her his hand. Ready? Diana took it, let him help her onto the horse behind him. I should tell you, she said against his back as they started riding. I still don't fully feel it. The mate bond. Sometimes I think I do. There's this pull toward you, this rightness, but it's not overwhelming, not like the stories say. That's okay. Brooks's voice rumbled through his chest into hers. Sometimes bonds take time to fully form, especially after trauma. There's no rush. Your council isn't going to like this, Diana continued. You showing up with some nobody from a small pack, claiming she's your mate when she can't even feel the bond yet. My council will deal with it, Brooks said. And you're not nobody, Diana. You survived a murder attempt. You faced down your would-be killer, and you chose exile for her instead of death. That takes more strength than most of my council combined. Diana was quiet for a moment, watching the forest pass by. Can I ask you something? She felt him nod. What you did, feeling me from that distance, changing the wind itself, that's not normal, is it? Even for mates, I'm trying to understand what it means. Brooks was silent for so long, Diana thought he wouldn't answer. I've been thinking about that too, he said finally. The force of what I felt. It wasn't just a bond snapping into place. It was like the earth itself was screaming that you were dying. My wolf didn't ask permission, just took over and ran. His hands tightened on the reins. I've heard stories of bonds that strong, but they're always between wolves who've known each other for years, who've built something together. We'd never met. Diana's breath caught. So, why us? I think some bonds are strong enough to break the rules. Some mates are meant to find each other even when everything is stacked against them. Brooks glanced back at her, silver eyes bright in the fading light. I think it means you and I were supposed to meet, Diana, even if it took your sister's betrayal to make it happen. Diana leaned her forehead against his back, let herself absorb the steady rhythm of his breathing. I'm scared, she admitted. Of your pack, of being a Luna, of not being good enough. Then we'll be scared together, Brooks interrupted. And when you're ready, when the bond fully snaps for you, if it ever does, we'll face whatever comes together. Something in Diana's chest settled at that word. Together. They rode through the night, stopping only once to water the horses and let Diana rest. Brooks's people were professional and polite, treating her with a respect she wasn't used to, like she was already their Luna, even though she hadn't accepted anything yet. As dawn broke over the mountains, they crested a hill and Diana got her first look at the Northern Pack's territory. It sprawled across a valley, massive and prosperous, with stone buildings and organized streets that made her own pack's village look like a scattered afterthought. That's home, Brooks said, pride evident in his voice. What do you think? Honestly, I think it's terrifying, she said. I have no idea how to be Luna to a pack like this. I'm afraid your council is going to hate me, and half your pack is going to question why you chose me. Brooks twisted in the saddle to look at her properly. But I'm going to do it anyway, Diana finished. I'd rather be terrified than invisible. She held his gaze. Brooks smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Then let's give them something to talk about. He leaned down and kissed her, soft and careful and full of promise. And Diana felt it then, finally, the bond snapping into place like a key turning in a lock, everything suddenly sharp and clear and right. She pulled back, gasping. Oh, there it is, Brooks murmured. His eyes had gone molten silver. Welcome home, Luna. Diana kissed him again, harder this time, pouring everything she couldn't say into it. When they finally broke apart, his people were politely looking away, but she could see the smiles on their faces. So now, I just have to prove I deserve to be here, Diana said, echoing words from what felt like a lifetime ago. Brooks's hand found hers, squeezed gently. You already do, but I'll enjoy watching you make them realize it. They rode down the hill together, toward the unknown, the impossible, and the terrifying. Diana had expected to be taken straight to the pack house, to face Brooks's counsel and whatever judgment awaited her. Instead, he steered them toward a smaller, building on the edge of the main settlement, a cottage with stone walls and a garden that had clearly been maintained with care. This was my mother's house, Brooks said as he helped her dismount. She liked having her own space, away from the politics and posturing. After she died, I kept it for... He paused, looking almost embarrassed. For whoever came after. Your mate, Diana said quietly. Yes. He pushed open the door, revealing a space that was somehow both rustic and refined. Comfortable furniture, shelves lined with books, windows that let in the morning light. I thought you might want a few days to settle before facing the council. They're not going anywhere, and you've been through hell. Diana walked through the space, trailing her fingers over the furniture. Everything was dust-free, well-kept. He'd been maintaining this place for years, waiting for someone who might never come. And now she was here. Brooks, she said, turning to face him. What happens if your council refuses to accept me? What if they demand you choose someone else? Someone with better bloodlines or political connections? He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. Then I tell them no. You can't just... I can. I'm the Alpha King. My wolf has chosen you. The ancient pool itself recognized our bond, and more importantly, I choose you. When I look at you, I see someone who survived the worst betrayal imaginable and still chose mercy over vengeance. I see strength and intelligence, and a woman who refuses to be defined by what others think she should be. His hands came up to frame her face. That's who I want standing beside me. Diana's throat felt tight. I don't know how to be a Luna. Neither did my mother when she first arrived. Neither did any Luna before her first day. Brooks's thumb traced her cheekbone. You learn. You adapt. You become what your pack needs. And I'll be here, every step. Before Diana could respond, there was a knock at the door. Brooks pulled away with reluctance, and Diana tried to ignore how much she immediately missed his proximity. The bond was getting stronger by the hour, making her hyper-aware of every time he moved away from her. A woman stood in the doorway, older, with silver threading through her dark hair and sharp eyes that assessed Diana in one sweeping glance. So, this is her. Diana, this is Vera. She manages the pack house and basically runs everything I'm too stubborn to deal with myself. Brooks made the introduction with affection. Vera, this is Diana, my mate. Vera's expression didn't change. The council is demanding an audience. They heard you brought back a mate from the Southern Territories, and they have concerns. I'm sure they do, Brooks said dryly. Tell them we'll meet tomorrow evening. That should give them enough time to work themselves into a proper outrage. Brooks, Diana protested. If they want to meet, they can wait, he said firmly. You're not facing a hostile council while you're still recovering. He looked at Vera. Can you bring some food? And maybe some clothes that actually fit her? Vera's sharp gaze swept over Diana again, taking in the borrowed shirt and her general disheveled state. Something in her expression softened fractionally. I'll see what I can do. The council won't like being made to wait, you know. The council rarely likes anything I do, Brooks countered. This won't be new. After Vera left, Diana sank onto the sofa. You're making enemies for me before I've even been introduced. I'm making it clear that you're not someone they can bully or dismiss. Brooks sat beside her, close enough that their thighs touched. My council is full of traditionalists who think power should be concentrated in old bloodlines and political marriages. They're going to test you, try to find weaknesses, attempt to convince me you're not suitable. Maybe they're right, Diana said quietly. I'm from a middling pack. I have no special abilities. I can barely... Brooks caught her chin, turned her face toward his. Stop. You're doing that thing where you make yourself small. I watched you face down your sister, choose exile over execution, even though you had every right to demand blood. His silver eyes were intense. That's not weakness, Diana. That's courage most wolves never find. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear means you're smart enough to understand the stakes. Brooks pulled her closer until she was tucked against his side. But fear doesn't mean you can't do this. It just means you'll have to be brave. They sat like that for a while, Diana breathing in his scent, pine and winter and something uniquely him, and trying to imagine a future where she belonged here, where she was Luna to a pack of thousands, where people looked to her for guidance and strength. It seemed impossible. But then again, so did surviving widows drop. Vera returned an hour later with food and an armful of clothes. She also brought another woman, younger, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "This is Maya," Vera said. "She'll be your attendant if you'll have her." Diana blinked. "Oh, I don't need an attendant." "You do if you're going to be Luna," Maya said cheerfully. "Unless you know how to navigate pack politics, formal ceremonies, and council meetings where everyone's trying to make you look incompetent. No? Then you need me." Despite everything, Diana found herself smiling. Is everyone in the Northern Pack this blunt? "Only the ones worth knowing," Maya said. She set the clothes down and started sorting through them. "Now, let's get you dressed properly. The council meeting is tomorrow, which means we have exactly 1 day to teach you everything you need to know about not letting those old wolves eat you alive." 1 day, Diana repeated. "That's not much time." "Then we'd better get started." Maya pulled out a dress in deep forest green. "First lesson, never let them see you doubt yourself. Even if you're terrified, even if you have no idea what you're doing, you walk in like you own the room, because you do. You're the Alpha King's mate. That gives you power, whether they like it or not." Diana took the dress, feeling the quality of the fabric. It was nicer than anything she'd ever owned. "And if they ask about my bloodline, my pack?" "You tell them the truth," Brooks said from where he'd been watching. "You're from the Southern Pack, and you survived an assassination attempt by your own sister. Any wolf who questions your strength after that is an idiot." "He's right," Vera said unexpectedly. Both Diana and Brooks turned to stare at her. She shrugged. "What?" The girl climbed out of Widow's Drop alive. The pool appeared for her. "That hasn't happened in over a century. If the old magic recognizes her, the council can damn well do the same." Diana felt something warm bloom in her chest. She'd expected resistance, hostility, judgment. Instead, these two women were already defending her, already treating her like she belonged. The next day passed in a blur of preparation. Maya taught her the names and positions of all 12 council members, their families, their political leanings, their likely objections to Diana's presence. Vera drilled her on protocol, on how to enter a room, how to address the council, when to speak and when to stay silent. Brooks mostly stayed out of it, but Diana would catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe? Or concern. By the time evening arrived, Diana's head was spinning with information and her stomach was in knots. The dress Maya had chosen was beautiful. Deep green that brought out her eyes, fitted to show she was a woman grown but modest enough to avoid scandal. Her hair had been braided in a northern style, showing she was already adapting to their customs. "You look perfect," Maya said, stepping back to assess her work. "I look terrified," Diana corrected. "You look strong," Brooks said from the doorway. He'd dressed formally, too, all black with silver clasps that marked his rank. He looked every inch the Alpha King, powerful and unmovable. "Ready?" He offered his arm, and Diana took it, trying not to focus on how right it felt to walk beside him. The mate bond was fully active now, singing in her blood every time they touched. She could feel his wolf through it, patient, protective, absolutely certain in its choice of her. She wished she felt that certain about herself. The council met in a circular chamber in the main pack house. 12 wolves sat in high-backed chairs, arranged in a semicircle. All of them turned to watch as Brooks and Diana entered. Diana kept her chin up, her spine straight. Walked like she owned the room, just like Maya had taught her. Brooks led her to 2 chairs set apart from the council, higher, marking their rank. He waited until she was seated before taking his own chair. "Council," he said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. I've called this meeting to introduce my mate, Diana, formerly of the Southern Pack. We completed our bond 4 days ago, witnessed by the old magic itself. Murmuring broke out immediately. Diana watched the council members' faces, trying to match names to positions like Maya had taught her. An older male with gray in his beard leaned forward. Alpha King, with respect, we had no knowledge you were courting anyone. This is highly irregular. True mates don't follow convenient timelines, Counselor Dane, Brooks replied. The bond formed suddenly, as these things do. I felt her dying from miles away and followed that pull. The ancient pool beneath Widow's Drop appeared to save her, the first time in over a century. That caused more murmuring. Diana saw some skeptical faces, some intrigued ones. A woman with steel-gray hair spoke up. The pool is a children's story. We have no proof it even exists. I have proof, Diana said. All eyes turned to her. She forced herself to keep breathing steadily. I fell from Widow's Drop after being pushed by my sister. I should have hit rocks. Instead, I hit water that appeared from nowhere, in a place where it had never been. Alpha King Brooks pulled me out and recognized the mate bond immediately. Why would your sister try to kill you? Another council member asked, his tone skeptical. Diana met his gaze steadily. Because she was having an affair with a mated male in our pack, and he'd become obsessed with me instead. She pushed me off a cliff rather than lose him. She paused. I survived, returned to my pack, confronted her with evidence of her crime. She confessed in front of the entire council, and I chose exile as her punishment. You chose mercy for your would-be murderer? The steel-haired woman sounded surprised. I chose to let her live, Diana corrected. Silence fell over the chamber. Diana could feel Brooks's approval through the bond, warm and steady. Counselor Dane spoke again. You understand our concerns, Miss Diana. The Luna of the Northern Pack holds significant power and influence. Your bloodline is modest. Your pack of origin is small and unremarkable. Some might question whether you're prepared for this role. I am questioning it, Diana said bluntly. Several council members looked startled. I have no experience with politics or formal leadership. I'm learning your customs, your traditions, your expectations, and I'll probably make mistakes while I do. She leaned forward slightly. But I'm also the woman the old magic chose to save, the woman your Alpha King's wolf recognized as mate, and I'm the woman who survived betrayal, chose justice over vengeance, and left everything I knew to build something new here. Her voice strengthened. So yes, question my bloodline, question my experience, but don't question my commitment or my strength. I've already proven both. The silence that followed was different this time, thoughtful instead of skeptical. The steel-haired woman, Counselor Iris, Diana remembered, actually smiled. Well, you have a spine at least. That's more than can be said for some. The question remains, another counselor said, whether this bond is genuine or if Miss Diana is simply an opportunist who saw a chance to elevate her status. Brooks's growl was low and dangerous. Careful, Counselor Reed. You're implying my mate is a liar. I'm implying we should be certain before we accept her as Luna, Reed replied coolly. Surely you can understand our caution, Alpha King. Diana put her hand on Brooks's arm, felt him settle slightly at her touch. What would convince you? She asked Reed directly. What proof do you need that this bond is real? Reed studied her. The old stories say true mates can sense each other's emotions, their pain, that the bond creates a connection deeper than words. He gestured to Brooks. If you can tell us what your mate is feeling right now, without any visual cues or communication that would be compelling evidence. It was a test, a way to humiliate her if she was wrong, to prove she was a fraud. Diana closed her eyes, focused on the bond thrumming between them. At first, all she felt was her own nervousness, her own racing heart. But then she pushed deeper, following that golden thread that connected her to Brooks. And there it was. His emotions, clear as water. Pride, she said quietly, eyes still closed. He's proud of how I'm handling this. But there's also anger at Reed for questioning me. Protectiveness, so strong it's almost overwhelming. He wants to defend me, but he's holding back because he knows I need to prove myself. She opened her eyes, met Reed's gaze. And underneath it all, there's absolute certainty. He has no doubts about me, even when I have doubts about myself. Brooks's hand found hers, squeezed gently. Through the bond, she felt his approval, his admiration, his fierce pride in her. Reed sat back, something like respect crossing his face. The bond is real, Counselor Iris said firmly, which means Diana is our Luna, whether we had input in the choice or not. The question now is whether we support her or make this transition unnecessarily difficult. I vote we support her, a younger counselor said. The old magic doesn't make mistakes. If it recognized her, that's good enough for me. One by one, the council members voiced their acceptance, some grudgingly, some with genuine warmth. Reed was one of the last, but eventually even he nodded. Welcome to the Northern Pack, Luna Diana, Counselor Dane said formally. May your bond bring strength to us all. Diana let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Brooks's hand tightened on hers, and through the bond, she felt his relief, his joy, his absolute conviction that she belonged here. The formal acceptance ceremony was held 3 days later, under the full moon. Diana stood before the entire pack. Thousands of wolves gathered in the central clearing and spoke the traditional vows that bound her to them as Luna. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it somehow felt like coming home. Brooks stood beside her, steady and solid. When the ceremony concluded and the pack howled their acceptance, he pulled her close and kissed her in front of everyone. The bond flared between them, golden and unbreakable. Still scared? He murmured against her lips. Terrified, Diana admitted, but doing it anyway. That's my Luna. Later, when they'd escaped the celebration and retreated to the cottage, Diana stood at the window and looked out over the territory that was now hers to protect. Brooks came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. Having second thoughts? He asked. Always, Diana said honestly, but fewer than yesterday, fewer than the day before that. That's how it works. One day at a time, you become who you're meant to be. Brooks rested his chin on her shoulder. Diana leaned back into him, let herself be held. Through the window, she could see wolves moving through the settlement. Her pack now, her responsibility. I should thank Celine, she said softly. If she hadn't pushed me off that cliff, I'd probably be mated to Gavin's son right now. Would be small and safe and slowly dying inside. You're not thanking her, Brooks said firmly. No, Diana agreed. But I'm not sorry it happened either, because it led me here, to you, to this. She turned in his arms, looked up at him, to becoming someone who matters. You always mattered, Brooks said. You just needed to find people who could see it. Diana kissed him then, pouring everything she felt into it, gratitude and fear and hope and fierce, wild joy. When they pulled apart, both breathless, she saw her future written in his silver eyes. It wouldn't be easy. The council would continue to test her. The pack would watch for any sign of weakness. She'd make mistakes, face challenges she wasn't prepared for, stumble and doubt herself 1,000 times. But she'd also rise. She'd adapt. She'd become the Luna this pack needed, one difficult day at a time, and she wouldn't do it alone. "Ready for tomorrow?" Brooks asked, reading her thoughts through the bond. Diana smiled, fierce and certain. "Always." Outside, the moon rose, bathing everything in silver light. Diana stood in Brooks's arms and thought about the girl who'd fallen from Widow's Drop, terrified, betrayed, certain she was dying. That girl was gone. In her place stood a Luna who'd clawed her way back from the rocks, who'd faced down her sister's hatred, who'd chosen courage over comfort. The fall hadn't killed her. It had freed her. Did Diana make the right choice exiling Celine instead of demanding blood? And where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts, and if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.